her experience with crowdfunding, recording and releasing her album, and creating her songbook. Beret Finken is a Southern Minnesota-based songwriter and musician, a graduate of Bethany Lutheran College in Mankato, Minnesota. Beret's debut album and songbook, Change with the Seasons, was funded through Kickstarter. Please welcome Beret Finken. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Crowdfunding, a quick crash course on Kickstarter and its ins and outs. I'm Beret Finken, and today I'll be talking with you about how I used the online crowdfunding platform, Kickstarter, to raise funds for my debut album last summer. You won't need anything for this workshop, but and I was like, okay, if I want to produce, I don't know, like 200 CDs or something, how can I raise money for this? And then I remembered that there is an online platform specifically made for artists and people, creatives, for like making stuff to raise money for these products, or for these projects. And it's called Kickstarter. And there are a lot of different crowdfunding platforms that are like Kickstarter, but why I ultimately chose Kickstarter was because it functions in two ways. So the first way, you set a monetary goal right at the beginning. You decide how much you need to fund and run your campaign, and anybody who pledges, the money goes towards that amount. And if you hit that end goal, your project is successful and you get all the money. And so then you can do whatever you've planned to do with it. And the second way Kickstarter functions is, so that first way is all or nothing, but you can use Kickstarter to raise just kind of like however much money you raise. But then the drawback to that is if you had planned, say you wanted to order 500 CDs and shirts and like a whole bunch of other stuff, if you only raised like half the money, there's stuff you wouldn't be able to do. Plus, if you do all or nothing, it gives people more incentive to back your project because they know that if you don't reach the goal, you don't get any money. So it is kind of a risk, but I mean that's what Kickstarter is, and that's why people put their faith in you, because they believe in your project. And I searched similar music projects. I think you can even search like genre-specific music projects too. And then Kickstarter tells you which projects were successful and which ones weren't. And so it's really helpful to not only look at the successful ones, but also the ones that weren't successful and figure out why they didn't succeed. And it could be for a lot of reasons, but so what I found when looking at the most successful projects is that people go into a lot of detail. When you're backing a project, you want to know exactly what it is you're getting out of it. You want to know who this person is, their story, you want to know why they're doing what they're doing. And it also helps, so at the very top of a Kickstarter project, you can either have like a photo or a video. And so the first thing you see if you go on someone's project is that photo or video. And Kickstarter tells you that projects are more successful if you've made a video. I didn't make a video, I'm not like a video person, but it's kind of true. Most of the Kickstarters that were successful that I looked at had short videos, just a couple minutes long, of people talking about themselves and their projects. And then below that is their story and everything like written out for people to see. But like a video is a really simple thing. It catches people's attention right away. It's informative. And so if you really want your project to succeed and you're like sort of video savvy, maybe, that's a good option. And this is where it gets sort of more complicated. But before you ever launch a Kickstarter campaign, you have to know exactly what it is that you want to get out of it. So for me, I don't even remember how many, I think it was 200 CDs. So you have to know how many CDs you want to order, where you're ordering them from, how much it's going to cost to get them shipped to you, and it's the same for everything else. Your t-shirts, how many do you want, what sizes, where are you getting them from, how are they getting to you, stickers, posters, all that stuff you have to know. You have to know the exact costs because that factors into how much money you need to raise.
Some information that a checklist for people down, or is it something you can research on yourself and figure out on your own?
Yeah, Kickstarter does nothing for you. They will tell you how, like, the percentage of the fees they take out from your, like, final cut or whatever. But that's, like, pretty much all the information they give. And then some, like, helpful tips, I guess. Like, they do say that projects that have videos are more successful or, you know, stuff like that. But they don't tell you, it's not like a checklist of things or like a template that you can use. It's all up to you. And that's why it's so helpful to look at other people's projects, because then you can see which ones actually succeeded and which ones didn't. And usually the ones that I saw that were not successful were like, they maybe didn't have a photo at all, or they had like, hey, this is, you know, I'm so-and-so, I'm making this project. The end. So this is basically what crowdfunding is. It's using your crowd, your people, your audience to raise money for a specific thing that you want to do. And there are lots of ways you can do this. As musicians, probably most of us have social media, and that's a really, really helpful thing. That's where I actually generated the most traction for my Kickstarter. I would advertise it on my social media, sort of relentlessly, like kind of annoyingly almost. Because you can even hype it up before you like launch your project. So tell people, hey, I'm gonna run a Kickstarter, and like get their opinions on stuff. You know, I didn't necessarily know all of the merchandise that I wanted until I talked to people online, and I talked to my friends and said, hey, what kinds of things would you be interested in? Like, are shirts cool? Are they lame? I don't know. But so after talking to friends and stuff, I kind of like narrowed down my merch list and just got it on people's radar that I was going to be launching a Kickstarter, and I'm releasing an album, and giving people a lot of time to sort of think about it. Just as a stay-at-home mom and like side gigging sort of musician, I again don't have like extra money for like fun personal projects right now. So if I do make another album, I probably will run another Kickstarter, especially since my first one was successful. So like I know that people are into it. But what would I do differently? I would not do as much stuff. So one of the unique fun things that I really wanted to do was make songbooks for my Kickstarter. So like all the music on my album, I wanted to notate or like make simple arrangements for piano, a voice, and like guitar chords, and make, you know, have all of my songs from the album be notated and like in a songbook for people. And I was doing like so much other stuff that the songbooks kind of fell to the wayside because notating and formatting takes so long and like arranging, because some of my songs didn't have like piano arrangements, they were just guitar and like, drums and stuff. And so I'm still working on it. I still have the funds specifically set aside for that songbook, but it's just, it was too time consuming and like hard to focus on at the time because I was doing so many other things. So I would say you really have to focus on like a few really important things you want, whether that's CDs or shirts or mugs or whatever, or recording. You know, that's really expensive too. If you want to focus on a really good recording setting, a producer, like that could be your focus, whatever. But just decide on 2 or 3 of your like most important things that you want to get on the Kickstarter. And then it's also less money to ask of people. You know, if you've got, I've seen Kickstarter projects that need to raise, you know, $20,000 or something, and that's a lot to ask. If you've got the people and if you have the crowd for that, if you're like really popular on social media, if you've got a lot of followers, that's probably fine for you, but like that's not my situation. So the least you can ask of people, but like the most important and best quality stuff, I would say that is key. And they send you your funds in 14 days, and then the money is yours, and they take their cut right away. I think it's only like 10%. It's not that much. But then you have the rest of your money to like do whatever it is you're gonna do with. And it goes right to your account and it's simple, and then comes the hard part. You have to fulfill your pledges. You have to do what you said you were gonna do. So if you said, I'm gonna order 200 CDs and I'm gonna make a bunch of t-shirts and you know, order all these things, you actually have to do it. And then if people pledged for like a physical reward, you actually have to send people their stuff. So then you have to deal with shipping and packages and I would also recommend not doing international shipping. That is an option, but it's complicated and not something that I wanted to deal with. So if you are like totally savvy with international shipping and stuff, you can really do that. But otherwise, like me, I did not want to do that, so I didn't. I just kept it to domestic shipping. But then, you know, you have to figure out what mailers do I need? You know, what size do I need to fit CDs and like the big packages and stuff. So that's another thing you have to think about. But it's all good. And a lot of the time you can, like if you know people, you can just like give them their stuff instead of shipping it. So I tried to do as many like just handoffs to people as I could to save on shipping and make it simpler.
So that's the latest song, as I was saying. I'm not sure if I like it yet. If you've got a copy of the lyrics, you see that there's some extra verses too out there that I didn't put in that little rendition. That version's probably about between 3 and 4 minutes, and I want the song to be about 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm gonna try to keep it to that length, but that means then that I have to do what I almost always have to do when I write a song, which is kick out extra lyrics that I've written. I'm in love with words, and I write a million words, and so that's, I would say, how most of my songs go. I just write a lot of stuff that could work, and then I have to make the decisions. Even if I wrote a verse that is decent and could work, it doesn't fit unless you want a 19-minute song, which you might want sometimes too, but not this one. So that's one of my newest songs, and if I were to workshop this, this song is not done. This is a song that I would take to a workshop, and that's what doing today. I'm showing how to run a workshop for a song that's not quite done yet, and like the person would like to have some feedback. I understand that's a very personal thing to write anything, much less a song. A lot of people want to just keep it to themselves, and that's cool. But I felt like if you can find a group that you can trust, you could get some good feedback if you're wondering if the song is right, or if you're at that stage where you're like, it's 75% done, but I'm not sure if I like this part or not. And if you've written enough songs, you have plenty of songs that feel that way about it, where you're not sure if you like it or not, and you just kind of remain on the edge until you either just become the song or it doesn't. So here's how this will work. Take the green sheet, and if you don't have one, I have a couple extra. Because you can play it, but it's not necessarily done yet, and you're looking for some feedback. Okay? Without further ado here, she's just going to perform the song without even an introduction or an apology. You guys have got some lyrics she's passed out there, so that's great. And we just let her go.
I've got a girl with short black hair. When she shakes her head, it goes everywhere. She's got a mouth on her that just won't quit, but I don't care. I'm crazy about her. On the day we met, I knew this was meant to be. Well, look at those sad brown eyes, and I could see my destiny. I said, I got a couch if you want to come home with me. And she agreed. Got her tied down. She's not going away. She wants me around. We need her to stay. People call her a B-I-T-C, not me, H-E-L-L. No, she is the best thing I've ever known. Starts a lot of fights, but she's a good girl, it's true. I need to S-P-E-L-L it out for you. Well, she's got a new friend, he's been teaching her new tricks. The things she does to herself, they make me sick. Caught her in the backyard, digging holes under the bricks. I locked the door, now she don't get out.
G, I was going to say virtually the same thing, although I think I caught it right around like the fourth stanza or so. I started to think like, this doesn't seem like people to me for some reason. But yeah, I enjoyed that part of it, and you know, it also, I guess, started out simpler and less dynamic, and increased over the course of the song, which I think kind of like an exclamation point under it. So.
But your like full effort into the vocals at the end there, like when you melted out, was really good, and I just kind of got goosebumps when I listened to it. I think if you like added a little bit of that to one of the other choruses to kind of like bring it to, I don't know, but bring it all together, and kind of melt each chorus and feel more connected with the other ones.
This whole having to come up with something at the end, isn't it? I really liked the spell out part. It felt very like theatrical to me, and I could really feel like the cadence there.
Great effort, all in all. I think you maybe could tone it down a bit on the very end. The last stanza, the last chorus, it was just a little soft for me, but other than that, I liked it.
Kind of with you said at the end, it's harder to find stuff because you're one of the last people. So now we go around the other way, and this is where we actually try to find something that you think could be better. And this is the hard part. It's hard to come up with something. But just try to keep something small, specific, something that he thought could be improved, clarified, or better?
I think one thing I noticed that there's a lot of storytelling right at the beginning as you kind of try to start it. So I think maybe focusing there and trying to come up with a couple of creative ways to simplify, like reduce some of the amount of words and tease the finale would be cool. So.
Yeah, I had that comment as well. I think you could be even more subtle in the beginning to like make people think it's not a dog. And then in verse 1 and verse 2, the cadence felt a little forced. I was having trouble feeling the pocket, but that of course could be just as you're getting used to singing the song.
Yeah, I think I would just pile on with everybody else as far as I think the length of it, from the top of the song to the bottom of the song, could be streamlined a bit.
Okay, so I didn't say what I liked, this is by Michelle. I like that the chorus sounds kind of sad, because obviously you were saying that the dog is adopted, so that I kind of like that it was sounding sad, but it also is like kind of bittersweet. So I really like that part. The one thing I would say, two really quick things, I can't quite tell the root. I can't tell if it's supposed to be a little funny or if it's supposed to be a little sad. I also kind of got like sass from you, but that just might be you too. I don't know. And then the other thing is just looking at it, and this is something I learned from late, is I try to write my verses so they kind of are similar syllables in each verse. It's almost like they were saying before, you're trying to put too much in each line, but if you choose words that kind of like go with the next one, it almost sounds like more like a melody, if that makes sense.
I knew people were going to say that there were too many words. It's just very punk rock of me. I know you guys don't get it, whatever. But I actually, the thing I don't like about this song is verse 2. I love that line about the couch. I think that's fun, but the rest of it just feels like the first 2 lines I would love to just not even have it. So I will definitely take some of these suggestions to streamline it a little bit.
How long have you been working on this song?
I started on Saturday.
Oh, that's really new.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to do it for this, something that wasn't too personal.
I wrote some verses to my song 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And then forgot about it and then tried to bring it back again. But that's super new, so she's just like getting used to her own song too. So let's give her a round of applause for Thank you, Michelle. And then, without further ado, if you'd like to come up, Andrew.
Not scared. I like that there was room for a melody with what you had going there. Like I write exactly the opposite way. Words and melody, and then music. So I like that you had a piece of music that there was room for melody.
Not a singer, I'm not a songwriter, and I've only been taking guitar lessons for a year, and I love what you can do with the guitar. I wish I was that skilled.
really good, and I like that melody piece. I don't know how to like play actual music. I just write a lot of words. So while you were playing, I found myself trying to think of words as you were playing, which is I usually suck at doing for music. So that's really good that your song was able to bring that out of me. Lots of room for melody.
I really enjoyed your chord and harmony choices for the intro line. Sounded good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your playing. I think you need to write some words for it though, yeah.
Or add some drums.
Or add some drums.
I don't know. It sounded good. It's a great song. It probably already has a friend. I'd say write another one. But just keep going. It's awesome. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I also really like it in some of the open chord parts versus some of the little deeper in the harmony areas, and then with the solos, I feel like there could be more cohesion there, maybe slowing down and being a little more intentional with your picking rather than strumming the whole chord, maybe thinking about how you can do it in fragments, maybe even some alternate picking to try to add some of those embellishments you were doing rather than trying to go across the whole chord at once.
I'm not gonna force anybody to do anything together, but if you're just writing words and you're just writing, hey, you need him, hey, you need him. So that's what this can be good for too, is, hopefully the songwriter gets something out of these workshops in the end and they make their song better. That's the ultimate goal. But I'll tell you that almost every time I've been to one of these songwriting workshops or participated, it gives me ideas for what I'd like to do next. And I think that happens for other people too. You just see somebody write a good new song. I really enjoyed that song today, especially from Michelle. So I'm already thinking of my brain's kind of exploding.
Hey, wow, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you to Minnesota Original Music Fest. It's just amazing what you have done here with this. Seeing some repeat people from here, from last year, which is super cool. Yeah, so what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about, this one, set this. I'm going to talk about improvisation and what that means. I've been a public school teacher for going on 15 years now, and I've gone to this talk from lots of different people, and everybody does this a little bit differently, but most often what you'll see is people saying things like, you want to improvise, you need to know your chords and your scales and how they fit together, and if you play a B flat chord, you're going to need to know B, D, F. Most of the time when we play jazz, there's a 7 involved, so it's probably B, D, F, A, and probably a dominant 7. So the session kind of goes on and on and on that way, and the pyramids in Giza are like melting into the sand, and we're all growing beards, and we're all like half asleep by the end of it. And y'all are probably faster with your internet machines than I am, and it's all out there. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the chord scale relationships, if that's okay. And I want to talk more about like the philosophy of improvised music, maybe some dispositions or some habits that can kind of help you find your way, and also want to just get you set up to come play with me on Sunday at 3:30. It'd be awesome to see you there, and this is like everything you need to know for that. So, if you got the handouts, I hope you do, you've got a outline, maybe what we can follow together, and there's a warm-up too, an activity that we'll be doing together. So I'm trying to structure this maybe like half talk, half activity, but who knows, if people look kind of bored, I might forget what I meant to say, and we'll go right to the activity. But let's go ahead and start to the top. I firmly believe, I underline it and I start it. Anyone can learn to improvise, you've got to have fun and you've got to enjoy it, and it's a process. And I think really important, anyone can learn to. Nobody started out improvising, nobody was born with this skill. We all had to hone the craft. All of our journeys are different, but all of our journeys are also valid too. So, brings me to the next thing, reflection questions. So, I want you to maybe jot down a few things, your answers as I share mine. So what led me here to this moment? How did I become a musician, jazz musician? I grew up playing in bands. I played trombone, and I grew up taking piano lessons, and I was already getting a good start there. But I have this very distinct memory in 8th grade, at the 8th grade talent show. Some of my friends who were in a band that nobody had ever seen before, it was all really new still, signed up to play the talent show. And I just remember when the curtains opened up, they hadn't even played anything yet. They were instant rock stars. They were standing on stage, they all had like Nirvana shirts on, and they played When I Come Around by Green Day. But not even like the real When I Come Around. It was more like, it was kind of rough, but it didn't matter. Everybody loved it, and everybody went crazy, and I wanted to be in their band too. I had to figure out how to make that happen. So I asked my parents for a drum set, and and they were like, I don't think you really need a drum set, but maybe grandma's got a guitar in her closet somewhere. Maybe your uncle had it or something. We can get you a guitar and we can get you some lessons. We'll see what happens. And so from guitar, it became a bass, similar story, in a closet somewhere in a box, put it together, and kind of got started. One thing I remember that was really helpful was I went down to the music store where I started to take some lessons. I got all the books, and I'm a little embarrassed to say this, I got all the VHS tapes of people playing bass guitars and lessons, and one of them was Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, his bass theory, his bass lesson. And basically what it was him hanging out with Chad Smith, the drummer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They would just jam improvisationally for like 20 minutes. And then Flea would come out and he would give like a 5-minute interview. And then they go back and they jam for 20 more minutes. The first thing on there is to choose a piece and commit yourself to it. Learn everything about it. I see a lot of people, they'll buy a real book where they've got thousands of charts on their device or whatever, and they can read, so of course they can play them, but can they really? And so I'd rather know one chart really, really well, memorized, not just the melody. I heard you playing Chameleon over here, so not just the melody. Just what goes from there, a baseline tune, or even the drum part, chords, all that stuff. You can learn that. Not only are you going to play that piece better, it's going to open you up to what the band is doing, but every piece that you play after that, everything that you learn after that, you're going to be better at too, because you did the deep dive, you did the study, you listened to the original, you learned maybe some of Herbie's solo even. All that stuff is really important. Choose a piece, commit yourself to it. I remember I restricted myself to playing Autumn Leaves. I decided Autumn Leaves is my song for at least a month. And that's all I let myself play. And I learned a lot about it. I need to go back and study that piece some more. That's what you gotta do. The next thing is common chord progressions. Your blues, your circle progressions, and your rhythm changes. This is like Bob Ross painting trees, mountains, and clouds. He's done these all so many times, he doesn't think about it anymore. You watch him on TV, and he just like makes a tree happen, because he's painted so many thousands of trees before the cameras were even rolling. There's a blues. There's a circle progression, Autumn Leaves, you're all the things you are. The Fly Me to the Moons. Work those out. And then, from there, you can learn a common vocabulary, right? Like, so you're learning the standards, but maybe you're also learning licks that you can then play with your friends that they know too. And this is something I love Adrian for. Taught me something he'll always do is he'll just find a lick or something. And he'll just hang it. Until people in the band finally start catching on, finally start listening to him. And then also we all start doing that. And then we come out of there, and it's really a satisfying moment in the music where the whole band connects, where the band connects with the audience. It makes things really interesting. I've seen a lot of people play jazz before where they're just in their own zone, and they're not really like interacting in a meaningful way. And so I think learning a common vocabulary is super important. That's why I have the lick on my shirt today. It's kind of one of those things you want to know. And using your own music. And the final point with that common vocabulary is improvisation is not just making stuff up on the spot. A lot of people think, I'll just know what to do at the time, I'll just go on stage, and then it's like kind of stressful, so don't let yourself do that. We all practice stuff, we all come up with theme and variations, and there's a lot of like self-discovery and a lot of work ahead of time, just like Bob Ross in the trees, painting off camera. He didn't do his first painting on camera. All right, people don't see that. But that's what you gotta do. And you'll make some mistakes along the way, but like start with a simple melody and come up with some ornamentation, some embellishments. It doesn't mean you're gonna play it on your solo. It doesn't mean Hot Cross Buns is your jam or anything. You're not gonna get pigeonholed or typecast as the Hot Cross Buns guy. But you're gonna learn how to like form a melody, how to change a melody. You're gonna write better melodies on your own from there. So any of those tunes is great. And who knows, maybe they come back in your solos as nice little hooks. Ones I like to use all the time. The ones that are like instantly recognizable. Just everybody knows that's Lady Gaga. Everybody knows. I'll do that all the time. It can really save you while you're soloing. Just do stuff that people recognize, and you sneak it in there. It's called quotes. Miles Davis did this all the time too. He did Pop Goes the Weasel. And that's the kind of stuff that makes Blue Note records sometimes. It kind of draws people in. Yeah! want you to be my echo in the colony. We're gonna just learn, we're gonna develop a common vocabulary here, some common language, all right? So I play something, you play it back to me, and I'm gonna keep it within those 3 notes that we just. Yes, I know, right? But like, let's just make sure we've got these figured out. Let's learn the rest of the scales. So we've got this note here, we've got this note here so far. How about this note? Did you find this one too? Awesome, there it is. Cool. And the next note is the blues note. It's just a 1/2 step. This is a great spot to start. And then resolve. Best Paddlefish Brewery. I hope to see you on Sunday. Let's play Chameleon on Sunday. Sound good? Cool. Yeah.
That's that, right? Yeah, okay. Right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some concepts in improvising, and this might be a little bit redundant from last session, but sometimes hearing things a few times helps. Yeah. So first thing I want to talk about is just you and your instrument, about knowing as much as you can know about that instrument. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. And so are you guys all taking lessons? Raise your hand if you're taking lessons. Okay? So nobody's taking lessons, okay? And raise your hand if you've taken lessons in the past. Okay, all right, back there, great, good. You should be coming up then. Okay, so the reason I talk about lessons is it's easy to fall into bad habits if you're not taking lessons on the ergonomics of your instrument, okay? And so I grew up playing piano and then clarinet and trumpet, and then by the time I was in junior high school, I was playing all the single reed instruments and all the brass instruments and piano. But I took lessons all that time, and part of what you get out of lessons is you get a little critical feedback on what you're doing with the instrument, and that can be a little bit humbling, but if you have a good teacher, they can kind of sell it softly and not make you feel like you're an idiot, okay? Because we all have to learn something from somewhere, and it's hard to learn that on our own or just by watching YouTube videos. So for instance, on a wind instrument, you're knowing how to hold your instrument so that you've got good ergonomics, that your fingers are working good, that you're using good breath support, even if you're playing softly, take a big breath all the way through your chest and then let it out at the right speed. Playing on guitar and bass, you know, the ergonomics there as well. And I've certainly played with, I'm classically trained, but I also learned how to play by ear and stuff. I've played with a lot of people that have bad ergonomics, and You might not notice it when you're a kid, but it kind of creeps up on you as you get older. So taking lessons, if you can find a teacher that you like, the only thing you lose by doing that is you lose a little bit of money, but you gain a lot of insight from it. So then I want to talk a little bit about music literacy, okay? So since you guys have music stands, I'm guessing you all read music, right? Raise your hand if you read music, okay? A little bit, okay, a little bit over there, okay? Do you read music or no? No? Okay, do you two read music? Okay, all right. So why is it important to learn how to read music? Let's say you went through life without being able to read English, okay? Then you could still talk to people and you could understand what they say, but if they hand you some instructions on how to put in an air conditioner, you're not going to be able to read it. You have to get somebody to read it for you. It's kind of the same thing with music. If you don't learn how to read music, you cut yourself off from some opportunities. Okay? If you read music and play by ear, then you can learn a tune a lot of different ways. If you play by ear, you can listen to it and you can kind of learn it that way. But a lot of times in the jazz world, you show up to a gig and you don't have the music in advance and you don't have the recordings in advance. And so if someone hands you a chart and says, let's play all blues, and you can't read that chart, unless you've heard the tune and practiced it, you can't do it. Okay? And so it's really important to learn how to do it. It's not super complicated. It's a little bit complicated because reading music is a little bit like reading a language that's based on symbols. Okay? So like you look at a chart like this, and this is just a bunch of symbols on a page. And if you don't know how to read those symbols, you don't know what it means. But it's definitely learnable. I mean, and you can learn it at any age. So it's certainly going to help you with improvising to be able to read, because someone can throw you a piece of music and you can take the things you've learned about improvising and bam, play that tune right away. If you don't know how to read, then you're going to have to listen to a recording and then figure the tune out that way, which gives you like no spontaneity. Okay? So really important thing to have music literacy. But it's also really good to learn how to play by ear. So how many of you feel like you can play by ear? Raise your hand. A little bit? Okay. So you might think that that's something that you're either born with or you're not. And just like anything else, you're not really born with anything other than your anatomy, okay? Now, different people have different aptitudes for things, right? So like, I'm a middle distance runner, but the fastest mile I ever ran as a kid was like a 4:45, which is relatively fast, but that's not gonna get you to the Olympics, okay? And so, we have aptitudes, but we can build on either our aptitudes or our lack of aptitudes. And so some of the ways you figure out how to play by ear may sound really boring, but it's actually like somebody plays a note, and then you take your instrument out, and you find that note. You get it in your head, and then you noodle around your instrument until you find it, and now you know what that note is, okay? And the more you do that, the more these notes kind of stick in your head. And so, the reason why that's nice is, let's say you're in a band with people that don't read music. And so they want to show you a tune, but the only way they're going to show you the tune is to show you a recording of it. And if all you can do is read music, but you can't hear those notes and put them on your own instrument, then you can't play with that person, okay? So reading music is good for the side of the crowd that has charts, and playing by ear is really good for the side of the crowd that doesn't have charts. And the more you do it, and sometimes it's fun to do with another person. So let's say the two of you are hanging out, and one of you plays a note, and you don't tell the other one what it is. And the other person goes and finds it on his instrument, and now he knows what that note is. And you can play this game back and forth. And after a while, you start to build this ability to find those notes. Now the other thing you can do is, let's say you're going to learn a tune that someone gives you a recording, and you don't know anything about that tune. But, so you start playing the tune, and you stop it right away. You play and you hear the first chord. Okay, and then you kind of get your instrument out, and you go, let's see, I think the bass was down here. Because it's easy to hear the top note and the bottom note. It's really hard to hear the ones in the middle, to break those down. You can almost always hear these two. So a lot of times, if you're listening and you hear that bass note, you can get that in your head, go find it on your instrument, now you know what key that tune's in. Okay? And then, let's say it's a blues, so the next one is, and then you find that note, and now you start to realize, oh, they're playing a blues in G, and it started with a G chord and went to a C chord, and now you've kind of built that. So those are some things I think that help you with improvising. So a couple of the things I want to talk about, and then I'm going to talk a little specifically about improvising, and then we're going to work on this tune all blues. Okay? So for horn players, especially on saxophone, it's really good. You don't have to learn this now, but if you take lessons with someone who plays jazz, at some point you want to talk to them about transposing. Okay? Because a lot of times, so you're playing alto sax, that's an E-flat instrument, okay? So like, the note that I play on the piano is going to have a different name on your instrument than it has on mine, right? And now today, the chart that I have for you, I've got an E-flat chart for you, so you don't have to transpose it. But let's say you were in a band and someone just gave you a C chart. You'd have to be able to, if you want to play with them, you'd have to be able to look at that chart and realize that the notes on your instrument are different, and then figure out those notes. So it's nothing you need to learn now, but it's a really good skill going into the future. Now, for trombone, you don't have to transpose. For guitar, you don't have to transpose. It's mostly a saxophone thing. Sorry about that. It's just kind of the way it is. And so if you're playing a tenor, you're in a B-flat instrument. If you're playing an alto, you're in an E-flat instrument. Now, part of what you can say to people is, hey, don't give me C charts. Give me an E-flat chart so I can play the thing. But, you know, you can't control the world. Okay. Last thing I want to say about the blues is that if you're playing with guitar players, they like playing the blues in either E, A, or D. If you're playing with horn players, they like to play the blues in B flat or E flat or F. Okay? And it just has to do with what you're used to in terms of flats and sharps. So, if you're a guitar player, it's a good idea to learn how to play the blues in B flat, E flat, and F. So that if you're playing with a horn player and the horn player is in charge and they say we're doing a B flat blues and you say, hey, I only do it in E, then you don't get to play, right? Same thing for you guys. It's a good idea to learn how to play the blues in E, A, and D, so that if you're playing in a guitar-based band and they call a blues in E, you can do it and not have to say, sorry, I only played in B flat. And they say, well, go home, you're not going to play with me. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about kind of concepts in improvising. And you probably had some of this morning, or just a little bit earlier, but I still want to talk about some of these things. So this is one of the things you can get from lessons, is learning about the music theory of improvisation. Now, oddly enough, my piano teacher did not teach me music theory at all. It was actually my trumpet teacher who taught me, which seemed a little backwards at the time, but it was what it was. I had a trumpet teacher that had me do workbooks where I would learn everything about different scales that went with different chords. And because he knew that I wanted to go a ways in music. And the reason why that's really helpful is if you don't know something about the music theory behind chords and the scales that go with them, then it's almost kind of like if someone said, tell me a story, and you just started talking random words like boat, tree, sun, bridge. Okay? You'd be like picking out words that have nothing to do with what the story is supposed to be. Same thing with improvising. If you don't know the scale that goes with a chord, the notes you're playing are random, and maybe they hit the chord and maybe they don't. Okay? So like for instance, we'll talk in just a few minutes about all blues. So the first chord in all blues is a G7. Now that means to me that I need to play a G Mixolydian scale. Now it's a little bit different for you, but I've got it on your chart, okay, what the scale is, okay? So what that tells me is that I'm playing a G scale with an F natural instead of an F sharp. Now if I play that F sharp, which would be in a G major scale, it's going to sound a little funny, okay? So the fact that I know that this G7th chord goes with the G Mixolydian scale, and I know what that is, means that I'm not hitting any wrong notes, okay? And so that's another reason to take lessons or to have that be part of music classes you're taking at school, okay? Now with that being said, you don't worry about mistakes, because worrying about mistakes will paralyze you, and then you won't do anything, okay? The rule of thumb on mistakes is that the right note is never farther than a half step away, okay? So let's try that out here, okay? Let's try something that... Okay, all I did is I went up a half step and I fixed it. So if I'm soloing around, it sounds like I intended to do that, even though I hit a wrong note and I fixed it, okay? So if you ever play a note and it sounds really bad to you, all you have to do is go up a half step and people will go, oh, that was really cool what he just did, okay? So don't let those bother you. So all those notes were on the end of the beat, okay? And there are other ways to do displacement. You go. So there I was playing a note every beat and a half. And those are just other different rhythmic ways to make your solo sound interesting. And if all you do is go, sounds a little bit boring to just do note after note after note, but if you do, so I used a number of different rhythmic patterns in there to kind of break it up and make it a little more interesting. So two more things I want to say. One is, if you're not comfortable playing triplets, then practice it, because it's just another rhythmic thing that you can do to make a solo interesting. So like if you're doing, if the tune is like 1, 2, 3, 4, and blah, blah, da, 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 da. So those are 8th note triplets. But you can also do 4th note triplets, such as blah, 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 blah. And all those things are ways to get away from just doing blah, 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 blah. And the last thing I want to mention is the concept of quoting. So that's when a jazz player will throw a melody from another tune into the tune that he or she's playing right now. So like in All Blues, it turns out that Norwegian Wood by the Beatles actually works. So sometimes that's a way to kind of get the audience's attention. You're playing some tune and then suddenly they go, is he playing another tune in a tune? And they kind of go, whoa. And then sometimes you'll be in bands where you end up having like this battle of quotes, where one person does a quote and then another person does a quote. So it's another way of putting something in your solo that makes it sound familiar where the audience can kind of grab onto it. Okay, so with all that being said, keep track of the time here. I'd like to have us work on the tune All Blues. Okay? So All Blues is a tune that was written by Miles Davis, and I'm gonna play you just a little bit of it off of my Mixolydian scale there instead of a regular Mixolydian scale. And so if that's the part that's making it hard for you, then that's the part that you practice over and over again. You don't practice the part that's super easy. I mean, you practice a little bit, but if it's super easy, it doesn't need any practice. So you always focus on the parts that are hard. Now, another thing you can do, let's say you're learning this tune, and you still don't feel very comfortable soloing over bars 17 to 20. Well, one thing you can do is you can really slow it down there, play less notes, and maybe play one note. I mean, let's say I'm playing the tune. So I'm doing pretty good. Let's listen to this part. So let's say I'm getting ready for that chord and I'm feeling pretty bad. Okay, see how I slowed it down? All I did is I found one note that worked with both chords and I just hit it a few times. Okay, so that allows me to kind of get through the hard part of the tune and not stumble around and hit a bunch of really bad notes or get so paralyzed that I don't play anything. So until you have the hard parts of soloing in a particular tune down, when you get to that part of the tune, slow it down and don't play as many notes and just get through it. And then that'll give you the confidence to go, okay, I can play this tune, even if that part's hard, I can get myself through it. And then you go home and you go, okay, I want to practice that part of the tune so that when I get to it next time, I don't have to just play a few notes. I can go. Okay. Now, another thing, a couple other things about practicing is something you could do on this tune is you could get the recording, blues, get it on YouTube, and you can solo with the tune on. And don't worry that if somebody else is soloing, that's gonna get in the way. Just kind of ignore what the soloist is doing and play your own solo. It's especially good for horn players because, if you're practicing by yourself, you don't have any chords going on. Right? So this is one way to get the chords, is to play the recording. And you can get all this stuff on YouTube, get it for free. And that way you're actually playing with a band when you have no band there. And you'll have a much better sense of if you're making mistakes or not. I mean, if you're on a horn and you don't have any chords going on and you're just practicing soloing on these scales, it's a little hard to know if you really nailed it or not because you don't have any context for it. But if you have the music going on, you can then figure out, whoa, I'm playing some stuff that's not really working, let's go back and do it again. So I guess the last thing I want to say is, I know we've talked a lot about, and hopefully this hasn't clouded your brain too much, but we talk a lot about theory and scales and things like that. But the best way to really learn this stuff is to just do it. If you read a book about riding a bicycle and then figured you could just get on a bike and ride it, you'd climb your face immediately. Right? I mean, the way you learn how to ride a bike is you just keep doing it and keep doing it, and then you don't have to think about it anymore. It's a little bit like this, so I would encourage you to get out there and play this kind of music with other people. Go to jam sessions. If your school has like a jazz group or a jazz reading session, to sign up for that. If you have some buddies that are playing instruments and you want to just get together and practice, I mean, that's how this stuff really gels. You can read about it forever and you can practice by yourself forever, but music is an interactive thing, and if all you do is just kind of sit in a cave and read a book and practice by yourself, it's never really going to fully gel. It fully gels by doing it with other people. You guys have any questions about some of the stuff we talked about? Yeah.